The Heart of the Hills by John Fox Jr., Chapter 22. The miracle had happened, and just how nobody could ever say. The boy had appeared in the doorway and had paused there full in the light. No revolver was visible. It could hardly have been concealed in the much too small clothes that he wore, and his eyes flashed no challenge. But he stood there an instant with face set and stern, and then he walked slowly to the old rattle-trap vehicle and unchallenged drove away. As unchallenged, he walked quietly back to his room again. That defiance alone would have marked him with no little dignity. It gave John Burnham a great deal of carefully concealed joy. It dumbfounded Gray, and while Mavis took it as a matter of course, it thrilled Marjorie, saddened her, and made her a little ashamed. Nor did it end there. Some change was quickly apparent to Jason in Mavis. She turned brooding and sullen, and one day when she and Jason met Gray in the college yard, she averted her eyes when the latter lifted his cap and pretended not to see him. Jason saw an uneasy look in Gray's eyes, and when he turned questioningly to Mavis, her face was pale with anger. That night he went home with her to see his mother, and when the two sat on the porch in the dim starlight after supper, he bluntly asked her what the matter was. And bluntly she told him. Only once before had he ever spoken of Gray to Mavis, and that was about the meeting in the lane. And then she scorned to tell him whether or not the meeting was accidental, and Jason knew thereby that it was. Unfortunately, he had not stopped there. "I saw him trying to kiss you," he said indignantly. "Have you ever tried to kiss a girl?" Mavis had asked quietly, and Jason reddened. "Yes," he said, admitted reluctantly. "And did she always let you?" "Well, no, not." "Very well, then." Mavis snapped, and she flaunted away. It was different now. The matter was more serious, and now they were cousins and Hans. Blood spoke to blood and answered to blood, and when at the end Mavis broke into a fit of shame and tears, a burst of light opened in Jason's brain, and his heart raged not only for Mavis but for himself. Gray had been ashamed to go to that dance with Mavis, and Marjorie had been ashamed to go with him. There was a chasm, and with every word that Mavis spoke, the wider that chasm yawned. "Oh, I know it," she sobbed. "I couldn't believe it at first, but I know it now." She began to drop back into her old speech. "They come down in the mountains, and Grandpap was nice to 'em, and when we come up here, they was nice to us, but down there and up here, we was just queer and funny to 'em, and we're that way yet. They're good-hearted, and they'd do anything in the world for us, but we ain't their kind, and they ain't ourn. They knowed it, and we didn't, but I know it now." So that was the reason Marjorie had hesitated when Jason asked her to go to the dance with him. "Then why does she go?" he burst out. He had mentioned no name even, but Mavis had been following his thoughts. "Any gal'd do that for fun," she answered, "and get even with Gray." "Why do you reckon?" "That don't make no difference. She wants to get even with me, too." Jason wheeled sharply, but before his lips could open, Mavis had sprung to her feet. "No, I hain't," she cried hotly, and rushed into the house. Jason sat on under the stairs brooding. There was no need for another word between them. Alike they saw the incident and what it meant. They felt alike, and alike both would act. A few minutes later his mother came out on the porch. "What's the matter with Mavis?" "You'll have to ask her, Mammy." With a keen look at the boy, Martha Hahn went back into the house, and Jason heard Steve's heavy tread behind him. I know what the matter is, he drawled. There ain't nothing the matter exceptin' that Mavis ain't the only fool in this here family. Jason was furiously silent, and Steve walked chuckling to the railing of the porch, spat over it through his teeth and fingers. Then he looked up at the stars and yawned, and with his mouth still open, went casually on. I seed Arch Hahn in the town this morning. He says folks is a hand-grippin' down thar in the mountains right and left. There's a truce on betwixt Hahns and the Honeycutts, and they're getting ready for the election together. The lad did not turn his head, nor did his lips open. These fellers up here tried to bust our country up into little pieces once. And do you know why? Because we was so lawless. Steve laughed savagely. They're getting wuss'n we are. They say we stole the state for that bag of wind, Brian, when we'd been voting for the same way for 40 years. Now they're going to gag us and tie us up like a yearling calf, but folks in the mountains ain't a-going to do much bawling. They're getting ready. Still, Jason refused to answer, but Steve saw that the lad's hands and mouth were clenched. They are getting ready, he repeated, and I'll be there. End of chapter.